Over the last couple of years, we have seen some major changes. The one that I want to focus on is all about inequality. Some are getting richer than ever before, and others are being left behind. The first thing I want to look at is mass inequality. Unfortunately, for too many, we are on the wrong side of that exchange. The second thing is this change. And what am I talking about here? Of course, the central banks and what they are about to do could impact the average person even more. The third thing is the fact that this is not linear. So we have to dig in a little bit more and experience what's going on a deeper level. I've got all of that and more. Let's begin. I wanted to start right here. Super rich thrive over the last few years as we see millions being pushed into poverty. A new billionaire is created every 26 hours over the last couple years, deepening the world's wealth divides. And you got to think of that in two different ways. Number one, that there is so much cash that's being thrown around places that basically every day a new billionaire comes on the scene. Crazy to think about, right? I mean, the term billionaire wasn't really much of a thing, seemingly just a few years ago. And now every day, that's certainly not normal, that's for sure. The world's 10 wealthiest people more than doubled their fortunes to $1.5 trillion as poverty rates soared. Now, of course, this comes from the World Economic Forum, a place where a bunch of rich guys tell you that you will own nothing and be happy. So, of course, they talk about all their issues and so on. I'm only using it to highlight this. Billionaires have seen a record surge in their wealth. The 10 richest people have boosted their fortunes by $15,000 a second or $1.3 billion a day. Now you got to think what this is all about. First of all, they tend to own shares in corporations. So maybe they're the CEO, maybe they're the founder, they own the shares have gone up. You see that their wealth goes up. A lot of these guys, maybe it's Bezos, maybe it's Musk or what have you. These people, their wealth is basically that company. If the company went bankrupt tomorrow, if the company was out of business tomorrow, they wouldn't have a lot of wealth. So it's really tied into that. And so you take it a step further and realize, what are these people doing in order to, how are they taking advantage of it? Well, we see there's something very clearly, which is what we'll talk about in the second part, and that is the actions and activities of the central banks making that happen. But as things change, will this get better for them or worse? That's something we'll discuss momentarily. Look at this. Obscene inequality, Oxfam says taxing the world's richest could help save lives. Now, they'll use any excuse in the book. They'll tell you anything you want to hear. I thought it was very, quite frankly, extremely unusual what they call a windfall tax. One way to claw back the huge gains made by the billionaires during the crisis is to tax the money that they've made over the last couple of years. A 99% one-off windfall tax over this period of time on the 10 richest men would alone generate $812 billion. Can we talk about the fact that, think about the TARP bailouts, think about all of the different, garbage cash that they've sent out. How many billions upon billions of dollars were used, through the CARES Act, all these different acts that basically put money out there and then were taken advantage of, taken for granted, all different types of different things that were used. Is taking from the top 10 richest people, well, what about number 11? What about 12? And why 99%? Why not 100%? Why not 50%? I mean, obviously this is not going to go anywhere. But the point here is that we are not focusing on the reason why they attained wealth over this period. Why did the general public lose out when there was cash being thrown at the general public? Okay, you got your whatever it was, I don't know, $1,600, $1,200, $800, $600. You were getting this and that. What were they getting? What was the advantage that was clearly much larger? What were they getting? Let's talk about that in a second. Just want to show you more about this. It's just saying that they did note both the impact over the past couple of years and the stabilizing effects of fiscal and monetary policy, along with the hopes of an imminent rebound, were distributed unequally across both the economy and society. He added that the greatest risk is not an economic one, but a social one, people being left behind. And that gets me into the point which I've talked about many times before, and that is the fact that soon the earth will rumble under the heels of the angry mobs. And people need to be aware of this, certainly. That's why I talk about getting prepared. That's why I believe each and every individual should get their situation in order. Financially, their portfolio, their retirement accounts, but as well as basic things, essential things. I am criticized literally on a daily basis by people saying, this guy only reports the negative stuff. I want to hear about what tickers to buy and so on. Look, I talk about that all the time. I talk about what's doing well and what's not doing well, which we'll get to at the end of this episode, but most people don't have the patience. What are we looking at here? We need to get all of this in order for ourselves and our families, and if not, we're going to be in big trouble. Now, Sadiq Khan plots to hit motorists in London with a pay-per-mile charge to force drivers of polluting vehicles onto public transport. Think about this. You are going to be taxed for every mile driven. Have you ever heard that one before? Yes, that's right. It's coming to most places globally. California, but of course, let's be very clear. This thing just moved on me. Let's be very clear. The purpose of that is not anything to do with the environment. It is the Hunger Games scenario, but people don't want to hear about that. California lawmakers unveiled a new bill at the beginning of the year that would establish a single-payer health care system. So people would say, great. Most people would say, this is great. This is a good thing. However, an ambitious plan that would be funded by nearly doubling the state's already high taxes. And this becomes, for many, a non-starter. You are unable to do what you want to do by increasing taxation. You have to get into this. So let's discuss. Economists say the Bank of Canada to begin hiking rates next week. Canada, the US, New Zealand, Australia, maybe the UK, and maybe, who knows? All of these different countries kind of going in the same direction, except for, well, two. And we'll get into that today. All right. What are we getting at here? Increasing interest rates. Why would they do this? Well, it's because of inflation. Inflation getting out of hand. They do have one solution, and that is increasing rates. Of course, in doing so, the number one in Canada, the number one way that people have attained more wealth has been that their home has increased in value. That phantom value, phantom because they haven't sold, has given them this sense of, hey, I'm doing well. I'm looking good. But is it really there? Well, not if prices drop. How will prices drop? Of course, just like anything else. If you increase interest rates, borrowing costs increase, you will have an impact on the prices of assets that rely on that. In this case here, real estate. Central bank tightening wagers, all the rage from the ECB to the Fed. Traders briefly bet on a 10 basis point ECB hike by September. Can it happen? I'm not so sure, because we know that Europe really, really wants inflation. That's for sure. Now, inflation, depending on how you measure it, depending on what you look at, you could see what's going on in Europe. Clearly, energy prices very high. It has come down off their peak. But, will they go the same direction? Generally, that's the way it happens, but the Bank of Japan doesn't seem to want to do that. The Bank of Japan stands pat, changes long-held view on inflation risks. Raised price forecasts still leave price growth far from 2%. Don't worry, the Bank of Japan is not going to increase just yet. However, one country is going in the complete opposite direction. Can you guess who it is? If you could read the small text, you would see that is China. Wait 1 second though. Have you given a thumbs up on the video? Please do. It helps to support the channel. It's right down there. Now, you could see right now China's central bank cutting interest rates on Monday to counter an economic slowdown, real estate slump, which I will try to create a video about this after this one, which will actually post before this one if I can, if I have time. But the real estate problems are actually expanding, though some don't want to hear about it, are among the challenges for the world's second largest economy. You got shutdowns, you've got the real estate problems. Of course, that's an issue. The move contrasts with the shift toward tighter monetary policy in the US and elsewhere to contain price pressures. So you've got the PPI, Producer Price Index. You've got the CPI equivalents, okay? In China, they are increasing dramatically. We are going back to levels we haven't seen in either a long time or ever. And during this period of time, they're going to actually loosen up. Isn't that going to make inflation get even worse? Well, the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, really started the new year in a different position to, let's say, other global banks. And we do expect to see further easing of support measures, both monetary-wise and from a fiscal stance. That means the government and the central bank will be acting according to what they believe is the right way to go. And that is very different than what we see with these other central banks. So I'm interested to see how this develops. And I'm going to finish the video right here. I just want to show you one thing. If you want to know what's happening with stocks, understand that it is not linear. Giant stock swings kick off 2022. Hundreds of US listed companies are off more than 20% from their highs. Many are in a bear market. You can see this right now. Number of securities at 52-week lows. This is the most since March 2020. I don't think people realize that because they look at the index and they say, hey, things are good. But not when you break it down. People might say, well, I don't care because I'm invested in an index fund, so I don't need to worry. But of course, when you get to these points, it shows some extreme weakness, and that usually drags everything down. So you can look at these here, bear market territory, including S&P 500 behemoths like Walt Disney, Netflix, Salesforce, and Twitter. Think about that. 39% of the NASDAQ have at least halved from their highs. Unbelievable. Anyway, great article here, just breaking it all down in the Wall Street Journal. I think I made my point clear, is that what we see today is all reliant on the activities of the central banks. They are going, except for China, it seems, all going in a direction of tightening. As a result of this, we could have some major changes in 2022. It doesn't happen overnight. Don't expect an increase in interest rates and an immediate negative impact. But it certainly does kind of dampen everything that we've seen up until this point. So the year, let's say March 2020 and onward, is going to be a very different scenario for 2022. Okay, that's all. If you appreciate the content and the information and support the channel, just hit that thumbs up. It's right down there. Just one click helps me out. And did you know that many people, in fact, almost every single day, I get a message from somebody saying, I was unsubscribed from your channel. I had no idea. I watch your videos all the time. So check your subscription, click the little bell, and you will see, notify me every time. You got to hit that. I'm posting every single day. If you haven't seen this video yet, you definitely want to check it out. So click it and I will see you there.